let's say good afternoon. My name is John Deloach. I am the senior staff attorney for the South Carolina Association of Counties.
I'm Sue Leeson, Senior Justice, Oregon Supreme Court. It's still morning here.
It's afternoon here. Welcome. My name is Beth Ratway. I'm a Senior Technical Assistance Coordinator at the American Institutes for Research.
Good morning and good afternoon, judges. My name is Isabel.
Introduce themselves. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Good morning and good afternoon, judges. My name is Isabel Nolad, and you're all outgoing seniors, and we will be representing Unit 2.
Good afternoon. My name is Rodney Berry.
And my name is Edward Lopez. We really appreciate your time here. Thank you.
All right. And if y'all are ready, we will be reading question 2 from Unit 2. So if you are ready, one founder claimed that representatives should refine and enlarge the public views by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens whose wisdom may best discern the true interest of their country. Do you agree or disagree with this claim? What alternative systems of representation were considered by the founders? What alternative system of representation, if any, should be considered in the 21st century? You may begin.
Representation was a very important ideal that needed to be discussed at the time, and James Madison, being one of our founders, wanted to express his opinion in Federalist Paper number 10. He described the Republic as a large number of delegates representing the rest of the population in this government. I would agree with this ideal due to the fact that every citizen is not fit to making governing decisions, especially seeing that at the time, most were biased towards their own faction. He mentions the wisdom may discern the true interests of their country, and not every person has this wisdom that deems them qualified to make such impacting decisions. The people would select these delegates that are fit and therefore still have a say in this government. Madison was going towards the right direction because he knew all citizens governing directly would not have worked with such a large population. This was the perfect compromise at the time for the people to be a part of the government and still get their best interests represented.
During the crafting of our new Constitution, the founders considered what type of government should lead this new nation into the future. And as we all know, they decided on an indirect or a representative democracy. Yet this was not the only path they considered for their newly birthed nation. For a while, they considered the idea of a direct or a participatory democracy. This idea was proposed in Brutus I, but scrapped for two main reasons. The biggest one being that people at the time were largely uneducated and had little to no knowledge about the possible impacts their votes can have on the nation. Another reason was that the elites feared the nation delving into mob rule and having their rights taken away from them. In response to the fears of mob rule, the founders also considered the idea of an elite democracy. This is where the wealthy and well-educated would have all the power to make political decisions for the United States. But this was not the destiny for the new United States, as we all know. But we can still see the effects of elite democracy on our nation, mainly through the form of the Electoral College. Along with this, in the New Jersey plan, there was another route for the executive branch, where they wanted to have the executive branch be an oligarchy. But this, along with the unicameral legislature from the New Jersey plan, was scrapped with the introduction of the Great Compromise.
As we live in a world with more than 195 countries, depending on who you ask, you can see that there are many different political systems of which we do not believe the United States should adopt. As we look across the Pacific and throughout history, we can see countries like the former Soviet Union and People's Republic of China that technically have a legislative body but are completely made up of the Communist Party of that state, meaning that the party represents its people instead of people sending representatives to represent themselves. We should not adopt any system of representation that hinders the citizenry in representing themselves. This goes along with our first past the post voting system that allows for an elitist democracy, even though our founding fathers were never technically able to write it into the Constitution. The United States should adopt at the local and state levels, because those are who run elections according to Article 1, Section 4, a type of single transferable voting system. This would enlarge districts and allow more representatives from one enlarged district to be sent to make legislation. I can explain more in questioning if you like, However, this would give James Madison mixed emotions, as more common people could run for office, which he would dislike since he was in favor of an elitist democracy and would allow more people with different views to be sent to represent them, enlarging the public's interest and promoting pluralism to its fullest extent, something that Madison would be in favor of.
After all that's been said, my colleagues and I can agree with George Washington's statement. The Constitution is the guide, which I will never abandon. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Oh, so many things. I want to go back to the elite democracy. You gave a little bit of you said that it is still present today and you correlated it to electoral college. Can you walk me through that a little bit? How do you still see elite democracy today? And how does that correlate back to the electoral college?
Well, the way that we see the elite democracies today is, like I said, through the electoral college, because we as citizens of the United States do not vote directly for our president. We have electors who come in and vote for our president for us. So it is a form of elite democracy.
To add on to my colleague, these people are chosen directly by at least in certain states are chosen differently, but the electors for our state are chosen directly through the governor, meaning the governor handpicks them through the parties at hand. So one side of the aisle picks their electors and the other side of the aisle picks their electors. Depending who wins the election in our state, those electors go and cast their ballots in the state capitol. Now, you could also see this along with the first past the post voting system that we have in mostly every district in the United States, which means that whoever gets a majority of the votes wins that election, even though more than 50% of a population might not have voted for that candidate.
I would also add on to my colleagues that the Electoral College has people that are more fit to making those decisions. They are handpicked by their education and their background and things like that. And that all plays into the elitist democracy that my colleague was saying before.
All right. If you're advocating eliminating the electoral college, what do you replace it with? Are you advocating just a direct popular vote for the president?
Well, I would argue that the founders never wanted the electoral college to go away. That in fact that people confuse the United States as being a democracy, but in fact we are a republic, meaning that there are many different steps in our actual country, in our government, and how we elect these people. The founders never intended for the president to be chosen by popular vote. Because they feared mob rule. They feared the 51% opposing the 49%, the rest of the population. Instead, they put a proportional system in place that allows for state governments to have a say in what's going on in the federal system, in the federal government. I apologize.
I wonder if you could explain the difference between how the Electoral College was designed and how it has functioned after the first time it was What happened? In other words, when you read the Constitution and the convention about what the Electoral College is supposed to do, that's not how it works today. Why not?
Well, again, the Electoral College was designed at a time where information wasn't as fast and as fluent. So meaning that the information wasn't as available to those people, meaning that if something would have happened with I apologize, are you gonna say something?
The design, they didn't design it because of the lack of technology. What was the theory behind the Electoral College? What is the argument that is made for it at the convention as opposed to how it works today? And what caused the change? Been able to look into that?
I apologize.
Go ahead.
No, I thought my colleague was gonna go. I apologize. Were you speaking? No, okay. Well, you could see that it was designed in a time where the founders didn't trust the people to make decisions for themselves. In fact, they wanted these electors to go to the state capitals and make the decisions for the people as in the executive branch. Today,
Bingo.
our
They
state
said pick
governments,
the best possible representative in the country to become president. How does it work today and why is it different?
well, today the state governments have taken it upon themselves to say, hey, we're going to have a popular election in this state. And depending on who wins that popular election, the we're gonna send our electoral votes to that candidate, meaning that we've essentially switched. And I would agree with you. I apologize. I didn't understand the wording of the question at first, but I understand where you're going with it.
Yep.
That we've completely switched from the whole purpose of the Electoral College, but we still use it as a proportional system today.
So it's become more democratic. Is that your point?
Yes.
So why would you get rid of it?
Colleague,
Go ahead, Isabel.
I'm sorry, I was just going to add on to his past point that representation was always a big issue in our country. And with the Electoral College changing, we tried to make it as balanced as we possibly could. So that was just adding on to his statement. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Thank you.
So you planted the seed, right? Single transfer voting system. When you talked about the citizen hinders the citizenry from choosing. So the single transferable voting system. Talk to me about it. How does that kind of get at the issue of giving citizens more voice?
So a single transferable voting system would essentially, where we live, there's currently 4 congressional districts, meaning that they would combine 2 or 3 of these districts into one district and set a minimum percentage of votes needed in order to send a representative. So if we combine 3 districts, every representative would need to have 33% of votes. And the way that we'd vote for these representatives would be in a ranked system, meaning your top choice gets 1, second 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, depending on how many people run. And essentially, more people from different political parties or from different political factions could go to Congress because they're not fearing one party or the other having that seat, which promotes pluralism.
Are you using the same 435 House districts that are currently enacted into law?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that? It kind of cut up on my end.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking with the consolidated districts with ranked choices, are you still sending 435 House members to Congress, or are you advocating expanding that?
Well, again, the congressional districts haven't, like, the amount of congressional representatives sent to the House of Representatives hasn't changed since 1929 with the Permanent Appropriation Act, meaning that that is a permanent act. That was the intention of the legislature to set that in precedent, and meaning that we should not change that now. Instead, we should just at the state level and at the federal level consolidate certain districts. So let's say there's District 14, 1, 2, 3 representatives. Or let's say there's a state with only 1 representative that's sent. There's only that 1 representative, but he or she was chosen with a rank system, meaning it was 1, 2, or 3.
Okay.
Would you guys advocate getting rid of the United States Senate in terms of an elite body that doesn't represent the population?
Oh, time.
You
Yeah, you have a gift for
I
that,
actually
Sue.
want to hear them answer that question. Just briefly.
Yes or no?
Oh.
Well, let's see a show of hands. How many would say we got to get rid of the United States Senate?
May
Okay,
we
you're gonna
answer
keep it.
in may we answer in congressional style?
Sure.
Well, I would I don't know about my colleagues. My colleagues would probably disagree with me, but I would say no. In fact, I would say we should change the way that the Senate works today back to the original intention of the Senate representing state governments instead of representing the people inside that state. And
Okay.
I would say that the 17th Amendment goes against the founders' original intention. And that's, now many people would disagree with me on that, but I think the Senate should go back to the original intention of the Senate.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Do you want me to? I'll start. We get to give you some feedback. You can see how excited we were to have conversations because we wanted to continue them. And thank you for bringing your passion, your depth of knowledge, and going into these really tough issues. And in your opening statements, you unpacked a little bit of Federalist 10 for us, and tried to get at kind of what the founders were trying to decide, and looking at the indirect representative government, direct participation. You brought out Brutus 1, and you talked then about some of the different components that you think they were looking at in terms of the different systems of representation. And you brought up the Electoral College, which brought that to the conversation that we had in follow-ups. And then you talked the last bullet, you gave us a little seed. You didn't talk a lot about it, and I understand, because there's a lot to talk about for that, but I would have liked a little bit more of why you chose that in your opening presentation, I know that we were getting in follow-up, so I appreciate that, but I would like to see how that flows from the thought process from this is what the founders were thinking about, these are the decisions they had, and this is how I think we should move forward. Just a little bit more of a flow. In the follow-ups, it was really a nice, natural conversation, and I thank you for that in terms of examples and unpacking some of these ideas, particularly the Electoral College and your thoughts on that and why, and really helping us understand what your thoughts are around these big ideas. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Sue?
Me next. That was a very engaging conversation. I'll admit that I'm puzzled between your defense of the status quo and your quote from Washington, "The Constitution is the guide, I'll never abandon it," and your critique of that system as essentially an elitist something or another. The quotation from Madison is taken badly out of context. And I'm hoping that you have read the paragraph from which it is taken, because he goes on to say that men of factious tempers or local prejudice or sinister's design may by intrigue or corruption or by other means obtain the suffrages. In other words, there's no guarantee that we're not going to elect representatives who behave really badly, are corrupt, and engage in political cabals. That's the problem he's trying to address in Federalist 10. He's not arguing that we're going to have these enlightened representatives. And so I would push you to dig a little deeper on what is his remedy to that problem. He has an argument. You may reject it, but he certainly has an argument that he develops in Federalist 10. I like the idea that you understand that state and local governments are in control of elections. And with respect to any proposed changes, I would urge you to think about what is the worst possible corruption that could happen under that change. Once you've understood the worst that can happen, then you're in a better position to say, but I'll take it anyway, because it's better than the bad that is happening under the current system. So anyway, nice presentation. We would love to be able to stay and visit with you a lot more, because that was very well done. Thank you.
Yeah, this was entertaining. I liked your arguments, and kind of piggybacking off Sue, is having representing local governments, particularly. I do like that that you are among the handful of teams in the last couple of days that have directly recognized that voting is really a state level issue, and that you have to solve it at the individual state level, because if not, it's very difficult to almost dictate something at the national level that would be palatable to anyone. The one thing I wish I would have heard a little bit more is you touched on reapportionment. I would like to have heard that a little bit more in your direct remarks, because let's face it, you're one of the states that's going to benefit the most from reapportionment. You and Texas. So, and I think that's going to be interesting in 2022.
Yep.
And that's kind of why I asked the question about if you're consolidating districts, are you still sending the same number of representatives? Because I couldn't see anyone advocating any system that would allow Florida to send fewer members.
Right.
Thank you so much, judges, and
Thank
thank
you.
you, students.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
And
very much
judges-
for your